Hi all, welcome to the channel Cloud Knowledge. Today in this video, we'll study a scenario where we want to copy the latest file or the last modified file from the storage account folder to the destination. So here we are inside the storage account Cloud Knowledge Gen 2 and there are different containers present here. So we'll go inside the test input container inside the input folder. And here we can see that we have few CSVs, and if we see the modified time for these CSVs, we could see that this file tubes input.csv is the latest. Okay, rest all are old. These are of the previous month and these for the current month with the latest date as 24/4. Okay, so from this folder we want to copy the latest file and the logic should be written in Data Factory. Okay, so how we will select among all the files the latest file and then we copy. This is what we are going to accomplish in this video. So let's go to the Data Factory and here we'll start creating a new pipeline. So we'll create a new pipeline and we'll name this as latest file. Okay, and then we will try to connect to this storage account folder. So the very first thing to do is to browse to this folder path and get all these files. In order to get the files or the child items present inside this folder, we have the get metadata activity. Okay, so we'll take from the general tab the get metadata activity in the canvas first. And in the get metadata activity, we'll go to the settings tab. We'll create the dataset. The dataset will be storage Gen 2 and it will be a delimited text because we have the CSVs present there. So we'll write latest input file link service. We already have file path. We'll browse to the file location, in fact to the folder location. So it will be test input and the folder name is input folder. Okay, so we'll select input folder from there and we could see the different files here. Okay, we'll click OK. We have selected only up to the folder level so that we get the complete list of files. Now we'll select first res header, import schema none and click OK. So the next option which appears as soon as we select the dataset in the get metadata activity is the field list. So we'll click on plus new and we'll select the argument from the drop down as child items. Means from this folder test input we want all the file names which are the child items. Okay, so the setting up to the get metadata 1 is done. So we'll try to perform a debug run to this pipeline up to this level. So it succeeded and in the output of the get metadata activity we could see child items present here. Okay, the name and type all are files and their names are given to us. Now our job is to get the latest file. And how we will get the latest file? There is this property called modified, last modified. Okay, last modified date and time which is shown here, right? And how we will get the last modified date and time? If you remember in the get metadata activity, if we select the file, okay, then we get the file specific properties, okay, in the arguments in the field list. So for that purpose, we need to now iterate through every file. So we'll go back here and we'll use for iteration the ForEach activity. Iteration and conditionals will take ForEach in the canvas. We'll connect get metadata 1 to ForEach activity and we'll go to the ForEach activity. In the ForEach activity, we'll go to the settings tab. We'll make the iteration sequential and in the items we will give the dynamic content which will be the get metadata activity child items. We will iterate through each child item, that is each file present inside that folder. Click OK. And then we'll go to the third tab of the ForEach activity, which is the activities tab. And here for each of these files, what do we want to perform? So we will click on this for each case and the edit button. For each of these files, we want the last modified time, that is the date and time, which we have seen here, as well as the file name. Okay, so that we could know that, yeah, for this last modified time, which is the highest, this file exists and we want to copy this file. So we will take again the GetMeta activity in the canvas. Okay, and we'll go to the settings of this and we'll connect to the storage Gen 2 account. So we'll select it, we'll select the delimited text, we will give it as latest file in, let's say the name, then the link service we already have, browse to the file path, it will be test input, it will be input folder, right, input folder, and then we need not select any file, we'll click OK, first row as header, import schema none, click OK, and in this dataset latest file in will open and create parameter. Why do we need to create parameter? Because we have to browse up to the file location, and since there are multiple files present inside the input folder, we have to create parameter. So we are inside the dataset up to the folder location test input container input folder, will create the file parameter. So we'll go to the parameter section and we'll create plus new file. Okay, as the parameter, we'll go to the connection and here we'll add the dynamic content for the file. So let's select it. It will be dataset.file. Okay, we'll go back in the pipeline and then here we could see that the same parameter will appear and we have to give the dynamic content, that is the value. So we will select for each current item. Okay, that is for each of the item which is item dot name. Okay, the value which is coming from the for each activity and its name, that is the file name. Okay, so it will be item dot name. What do we want to perform? We want to select the field list. So this is get metadata activity. We have selected the dataset, that is the parameterized dataset. For the file name, we will select the argument, which will be this time displayed as the file related arguments. The argument will be last modified. Okay, and we will click again on plus new and we'll select from the drop down item name. Why these two arguments? Because the last modified will give the latest file time. Okay, the last modified time, and the item name we need, that is the file name, which file. Okay, so this will give the idea. So now we have selected for each of these files the last modified time will come and the item name, that is the file name, will come. Now our next job is to compare the last modified time with some reference time. Okay, so for this purpose we'll create pipeline variables for comparison. Okay, so we'll go to the main pipeline and in the blank space we'll go to the blank space, select the variables from here and create plus new two variables. Here we have to create two variables. First will be the last modified reference time. So it will be last modified reference time. Okay, and the other one will be the latest file. So latest file. Okay, we have created these two variables and now we'll go inside the for each block inside the get metadata 2. We will write the condition. Okay, we have got the last modified and the item name of the incoming files, different files which we have iterated through, which we will compare with the variable which is defined at the pipeline level. So for comparison we will use the condition. Okay, for condition we have this if condition under the iteration and conditionals. Okay, if condition activity will take in the canvas, we'll join the get metadata activity to the if condition activity. We'll go to the if condition and to the activities tab of it and write the expression. Expression will be expression of the if condition which will evaluate to boolean true or false. So here we'll go to the dynamic content. At the dynamic content, we will write the expression. So the incoming file has the time as last modified, we have seen. And we have function here called as greater or equals. Okay, it returns true if the first argument is greater than or equal to the second. So we'll select this function, and inside this function we will write the two arguments. The first argument will be the output which is coming from the getMetadata 2. Okay, getMetadata 2 output under the activity outputs drop down we could see. Okay, so it will be getMetadata 2 last modified date time of the file or the folder. We have all the files present inside that. So we will select this getMetadata2 output dot last modified, which should be greater than the second argument, and the second argument will be the variable which we have defined. Okay, we'll go to the variable section here and we will select the last modified reference time. So we'll select this. Okay, what we are comparing here, that the incoming file, its last modified time, if it is greater or equal to the variable that is the reference time, then do the true case, else the false case. Okay, so this is how we write the expression for checking the last modified time. And if it is greater, then what we'll do, we'll go to the true block of the if condition and we'll use the set variable activity to set the latest file and the last modified time. So the set variable activity lies under the general section only with the name as set variable. Take it in the canvas. So we are inside the if condition true activities. We have taken the set variable activity. We'll go to the settings of this and we'll select the latest file. Okay, the pipeline variable which we have created, and we'll write the dynamic content, and the value for this latest file will be the getMetadata2 output. Okay, which will be the item name, right? The argument we have selected for the getMetadata2, that is for each file we have selected last modified and item name. So we'll select item name. Okay, getMetadata2 output dot item name, that is the file name, and then we'll again take another set variable activity for the last modified time setting. Okay, so we'll take that in the canvas. We'll join the output of the first to the second, and in the settings of the second set variable activity, we'll select this time last modified reference time at the dynamic content as getMetadata2 output last modified date time of the file or the folder. In our case, it is file. Okay, so we have set the variable for the latest file, that is the file name, as well as for the last modified time inside the if condition true activities, and we have done the comparison using the if condition expression that the last modified output, that is for each of the file, if the last modified is greater than the reference time. Okay, then set the value. And if we go to the main pipeline now, add the copy data activity. So take the copy data in the canvas from the move and transform and attach the output of the ForEach to copy data. In the copy data, we'll go to the source setting, and in the source setting, we'll select the dataset. The dataset will be same as the getMetadata2 dataset. So if we go to the getMetadata2, here the dataset name was latest file in, okay, which is having file name as parameter. So we'll select the same. Let's search for it, latest file in. And here in the dynamic content for the dataset, we will select the variable, okay, the latest file. What will be the latest file? It will be the latest file variable, that is the pipeline variable, right? So we'll select this latest file variable, which is set using the logic which we have written inside the ForEach block for each of the files. Okay, whichever is having the last modified time or the latest time will be set using the set variable activity and will be used in the copy data activity. So that's why we have selected here variable latest file. Okay, so this is done. at the source level. Now we'll go to the sync setting, and at the sync level, we'll try to connect to the dataset. So let's click on plus new, storage into account, delimited text. We will name it as latest file output. Link service we already have. Then we'll browse to the file path. This time we'll take it to the latest file output container, to the output files folder, and here we'll try to land the file. Click OK. First row as header, import schema, none, and click OK. Right? So the setting at the copy data 1 is also done. So let's revise what we did. Through GetMetadata activity, that is GetMetadata 1, we connected to the latest input file, that is up to the folder level, so that we could get the child items, that is the list of the files which are present here. Then we have used ForEach to iterate through every file. Why to iterate? Why we use ForEach? Because we want to get the details of each file, that is the last modified date and time of each file and the name of the files. So we iterated sequentially, and we have chosen the child items, that is for each of the file. We perform the activity inside the ForEach as another GetMetadata activity and if condition. In the GetMetadata activity 2, we connected to the file level. That is, the dataset is selected up to the file level. We created file as parameter because there are multiple files, and then we have selected the field list from the GetMetadata 2 as last modified, which will give us the time of each file, modification time of each file, and the item name, that is the file name. Since we have selected the dataset at the file level, the GetMetadata activity will give us the field list properties or the arguments with respect to those files. Okay, so these two appear, we have selected. And then in the if condition activity, for the condition check, we have used the expression greater or equals to check the last modified time which is coming for each of the files to the variable which we have defined at the pipeline level, last modified reference time, so that we could compare, okay, inside the if condition activity. And the variable last modified ref time and latest file we have already defined at the pipeline level. Now if this condition is true, if they are greater, in the true case we are setting the variable value, okay, for both. That is, for the latest file it will be item name coming from the GetMetadata 2, and in the set variable 2, the last modified reference time will be last modified. Okay, output.last modified. We'll go back to the main pipeline, and in the main pipeline, after this for each block, we have taken the copy data activity for final step, that is copying the file. So the file will be the same. Okay, the source will be the same, latest file in, that is the source dataset of the GetMetadata 2, having the parameter file, which will this time be the variable latest file, which we are setting inside the if condition true case using the set variable activity that we have taken. Then we will land it into the destination. Okay, so we'll now validate the entire pipeline, publish the changes. Okay, and we'll go to the storage account, we'll go to the latest file output folder inside the output files where we want the file to land. So the publishing succeeded or completed. We'll now perform a debug run of this pipeline. So ideally, our file doopsinput.csv, which is having the last modified time as the latest, should be copied to this location. So let's wait for the pipeline execution. So we could see here, it has executed. GetMetadata 1 has executed, it has given us the different file names. Then 2, if we open GetMetadata 2, it will give us one by one, that is the item name and the last modified time of this. Okay, these two properties are fetched through the second GetMetadata activity. It has taken doops input in this one and its last modified date and time. It will do the same for all the files present at the test input location. And then finally, the copy data 1 is executed and they are all succeeded. Okay, so we'll go to the latest file output folder here and click on refresh. Yeah, we could see the dupes input.csv is copied, which was the latest file present inside this folder. Okay, so for copying the latest file from an input folder to the destination. Hope you have understood the logic. Thank you for watching the video. Do let me know in comments if you have any queries. Happy learning. Bye.